My darlings, today I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about the answer. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything seemed fine on the surface, but something deep inside you never felt at rest? Maybe you loved him. Maybe he loved you. Maybe there were no obvious problems, no lying, no cheating, no cruelty, and yet you were always waiting for something to go wrong. Always anxious, always a little unsure, always holding your breath. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe you felt perfectly calm, but he seemed to need more than you could give, more closeness, more reassurance, more of you, and you didn't understand why. My darlings, today I am going to explain something that took me decades to fully understand, something that nobody talked about when I was young. Something that explains so much of the confusion, the pain, the patterns that keep repeating in relationships. It is called attachment style. And once you understand it, you will never see relationships the same way again. I promise you that. My darlings, what is an attachment style? Let me explain it very simply. From the moment we are born, we learn how to connect with other people. We learn this from our earliest relationships, from how our parents responded to us, from whether we felt safe, from whether we felt seen, from whether our needs were met or ignored or met inconsistently. And based on those early experiences, we develop a pattern, a way of attaching to the people we love, a way of responding when we feel close to someone, a way of responding when we feel threatened or abandoned. And that pattern follows us into every relationship we ever have, until we understand it and choose differently. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant. Today I am going to explain all 4, and I am going to tell you which one I was, which one Chester was, and how understanding the difference changed everything for us. My darlings, let us start with the one everyone hopes they are, the first attachment style, secure. A securely attached person feels comfortable with closeness. They can depend on others without losing themselves. They can be alone without feeling abandoned. When something goes wrong in a relationship, they can talk about it. They believe they are worthy of love. And they believe the people they love are generally trustworthy. They don't panic when someone doesn't text back immediately. They don't shut down when someone gets too close. They are not perfect, but they are stable. They are grounded. When conflict happens, they can stay present. They can hear the other person without feeling personally destroyed, and they can express their own needs without feeling ashamed. My darlings, Chester is a securely attached person. I did not fully understand this when I married him. I only understood it years later. But looking back, it was always there. Chester never panicked. Chester never pushed me away. Chester never made me feel like too much or not enough. He was simply present, available, consistent. And that consistency was the most healing thing I ever experienced, because I was not securely attached, not at first. The second attachment style, anxious. My darlings, this one is for all of you who have ever checked your phone 50 times waiting for a text, for all of you who rehearsed a conversation in your head for hours before having it, for all of you who felt like no matter what you did in a relationship, it was never quite enough. You were never quite enough. An anxiously attached person craves closeness, but they are always afraid of losing it. They need a lot of reassurance, not because they are weak, not because they are needy, but because somewhere in their early life, love felt inconsistent. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. And they never knew which one to expect. So they learned to stay alert. Stay watchful. Look for signs. Is he pulling away? Does he still care? Did I do something wrong? And that alertness, that constant monitoring of the relationship is exhausting for them and sometimes for the person they are with. An anxiously attached person often feels their feelings very deeply. They fall in love intensely. They give everything. They are loyal beyond measure. But they need to know the relationship is safe. They need to feel chosen regularly, clearly, without ambiguity. And when they don't feel that, the anxiety takes over. My darlings, I was an anxiously attached woman for most of my young life. With Marcus, I checked everything. Every word he said, every change in his tone, every time he seemed a little distant, I would replay the last conversation in my mind. What did I say? What did I do? What did I miss? And the more I monitored, the more anxious I became. And the more anxious I became, the more I clung. And the more I clung, the further Marcus pulled away. My darlings, this is what happens when an anxious person and an avoidant person get together. And I am going to explain avoidant right now, the third attachment style, avoidant. An avoidant person is not cold. I want to say that clearly. They are not heartless. They are not incapable of love. But they learned very early that needing people was unsafe. Maybe their needs were ignored. Maybe they were taught to be independent to the point of isolation. Maybe showing emotion was met with criticism or dismissal. So they learned to handle everything alone, to not need, to not ask, to not depend. And as adults, closeness feels threatening to them, not because they don't want it, but because it makes them feel vulnerable. And vulnerability feels dangerous. So when a relationship gets too close, they pull back. They get busy. They shut down. They say things like, I just need space. I don't do well with too much intensity. You want more than I can give. And the anxious person watching them pull away panics and tries harder, gets closer, asks for more reassurance, which makes the avoidant person feel even more suffocated and pull even further away. My darlings, this cycle, this push and pull, this anxious chasing and avoidant retreating is one of the most common and most painful dynamics in relationships. And Marcus was avoidant. He was not a bad man. He was a man who had learned to protect himself by staying unreachable. And I was a woman who had learned to protect herself by holding on very tightly. We were not compatible. Not because we didn't care about each other, but because our patterns were working against each other. Every time I reached toward him, he stepped back. Every time he stepped back, I reached harder. And we both ended up exhausted, neither of us getting what we truly needed. The fourth attachment style, fearful avoidant. This one is sometimes called disorganized attachment, and it is the most complex of the four. A fearfully avoidant person wants closeness desperately, but they are also terrified of it. So they push and pull themselves. One day they are all in, the next day they disappear. One day they are the most loving, present, wonderful partner you have ever known. The next day they are cold and unreachable. And they are not doing this to hurt you. They are caught between two equally powerful forces, the desperate need to be loved and the terror that love will eventually destroy them. This often comes from early experiences of deep pain, trauma, inconsistency, sometimes abuse. And it creates a person who cannot fully trust, even when they desperately want to. My darlings, if you have ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were loving two different people, where the highs were extraordinary and the lows were devastating, where you could never quite get your footing, you may have been with a fearfully avoidant person, or you may be one yourself. And understanding this does not excuse the behavior, but it explains it. And explanation is the first step toward change. Now, my darlings, I want to talk about something very important. Can attachment styles change? Yes, they absolutely can. And this is what gives me so much hope, because I changed. I did not stay anxiously attached forever, and Chester helped me. Not by trying to fix me, not by telling me to calm down, not by getting frustrated with my need for reassurance, but by being consistently, reliably, undramatically present. Every day Chester showed up, not with grand gestures, not with love bombing, just with quiet, steady, daily choosing. And slowly, my nervous system learned something new. It is safe here. He is not leaving. You do not need to monitor this. You do not need to hold on so tightly. You can breathe. My darlings, that learning took years. It was not instant. It was not easy, but it happened. Because Chester was secure enough to hold space for my anxiety without becoming anxious himself, without pulling away, without punishing me for needing him. This is what a securely attached partner can do. They can be an anchor. They can be consistent enough that over time, even an anxiously attached person learns to feel safe. Now I want to give you something practical, something you can use today. How do you know what your attachment style is? My darlings, here are some questions. Ask yourself honestly. Question 1. When someone I care about doesn't respond to my message quickly, do I feel a wave of anxiety? Do I start imagining the worst? Do I send another message? If yes, you may lean anxious. Question 2. When a relationship starts to feel very close and committed, do I feel an urge to create distance? Do I suddenly find the person less attractive? Do I focus on their flaws? Do you feel slightly suffocated by intimacy? If yes, you may lean avoidant. Question 3. When conflict happens in a relationship, can I stay present and talk about it? Or do I either panic and cling or shut down and disappear? If you can stay present, you are moving towards secure. If you panic or shut down, there is work to do. Question 4. Do you fundamentally believe you are worthy of love? Not in a performative way, not the answer you would give in public, but truly, quietly, in the middle of the night, do you believe you deserve to be loved fully? My darlings, that question is everything, because all of the anxious monitoring, all of the avoidant pulling away, all of the fearful pushing and running, underneath all of it is the same wound. I am not sure I am truly lovable. I am not sure it is safe to be seen. I am not sure love will stay. And healing that wound is the real work. Not just finding the right partner, but becoming someone who can receive love without flinching, without running, without holding on so tightly that you crush it. My darlings, let me tell you something. When I met Chester at 28, I was not fully healed. I was still carrying my anxious patterns. But Chester's consistency slowly taught me something, not through words, through actions. Through the 100th morning he brought me coffee without being asked. Through the 100th time he listened without checking his watch. Through the 100th time he said, I am here, without me having to ask. And eventually, I stopped waiting for him to leave, because he simply never left. My darlings, this is what I want for you. Not just to find a secure partner, but to understand your own patterns, to see where they come from, to have compassion for yourself, for the child you were who learned to love in the only way that felt safe, and to slowly, gently, courageously choose differently, because you can. I did. And the life on the other side, the life where love feels safe, where you can breathe inside a relationship, where you don't have to earn it or chase it or hold it so tightly, that life is worth every difficult step it takes to get there. Write it in the comments. Which attachment style do you recognize in yourself? And which one have you most often been drawn to in a partner? I read every single one. See you in the next one, my darlings. My darlings, I want to go deeper on something because I think there is a misconception I need to address. Many people hear attachment style and think it is a fixed label, like a diagnosis, like something permanent that defines you. And they either use it as an excuse, I can't help it, I'm avoidant, or they use it as a sentence, I'm anxiously attached, so I will always struggle. My darlings, neither of these is true. Attachment styles are patterns, and patterns can be relearned. But here is what I want you to understand. You cannot relearn a pattern simply by deciding to. You cannot think your way out of a deeply ingrained way of attaching. You can only heal it through experience, through relationship, through the slow accumulation of safe moments. This is why the partner you choose matters so much, not just for love, but for healing. A securely attached partner can literally help rewire your nervous system over time. This is not poetry. This is how the brain works. When you experience consistent safety again and again, when you are repeatedly met with reliability instead of abandonment, with presence instead of withdrawal, with honesty instead of confusion, your brain begins to update its predictions. Oh, it says, this is different. This is safe. I don't need to be on guard here. My darlings, Chester was my healing, not because he was my therapist, not because he sat me down and worked through my childhood, but because he showed up every single day, without drama, without conditions, without making me feel like my needs were a burden. And over years, over thousands of small, ordinary moments, I became a different kind of lover, more trusting, more open, less afraid. Now let me tell you something about the anxious and avoidant pairing, because I see so many women stuck in this pattern, and I want to explain why it is so magnetic, why you keep being drawn to the avoidant person even when you know better. My darlings, the anxious person and the avoidant person are drawn to each other like magnets, and here is why. The avoidant person offers something the anxious person has been unconsciously searching for. A challenge, a mystery, a love that has to be earned. Because the anxious person grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, where they had to work for it, where it was never just freely given, so consistent, freely given love feels almost boring to them at first, almost suspicious, too easy. Chester felt too easy to me in the beginning. I almost didn't trust it, because I had spent years running after men who made me feel the intoxicating anxiety of uncertainty. And Chester just loved me, simply, consistently, without making me earn it. And I had to learn that this was not boring. This was safe. And safe is not the absence of passion. Safe is the ground from which real passion grows. My darlings, if you find yourself always attracted to people who make you feel uncertain, who blow hot and cold, who are wonderful sometimes and unreachable others, pay attention to that. That is not chemistry. That is familiarity. That is your nervous system recognizing a pattern it has known since childhood. Real love does not feel like anxiety. Real love feels like coming home. And I know that can sound like a cliche, but I have lived it, and I want you to live it too. Write it in the comments. Have you ever confused anxiety for love? Have you ever stayed in a relationship because the uncertainty felt like passion? I want to hear from you. See you in the next one, my darlings.